Welcome back to the Present Fathers Podcast. I am excited to share my guest with you today, Daniel Hickman. He recently had me on his show, and I am thrilled to get his story now on this podcast. Daniel, welcome to the Present Fathers Podcast. How are you, brother?
Awesome, man. Doing great. I mean, we talked like that last week?
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago, I think maybe. It's been rapid fire.
Just fathers, we got to thank our wives for this free moment.
Yes, we do. So that's a shout out to all the wives who let their husbands pursue things like this and make the world a better place. But Daniel, you are the host of the Competitive Edge podcast. You're a father to how many kids? Tell us a little bit about your family, and we'll go from there.
So I have 3 daughters. They're absolutely gorgeous and athletic as heck. And I just grew up as an athlete, just like you. Grew up like an athlete my whole entire life. Played every sport you can think of. Just couldn't stand still. Just climbing and creating games with rocks, sticks, whatever it was. I was outside on the bike, just riding my bike everywhere. So fitness and being active has always been a part of my life. Son of a Vietnam vet. So I grew up as a Marine son, but not a Marine. And I had the decision, do I want to go into the Marines or do I want to pursue college hockey? And I was like, all right, the Marines don't have hockey. Maybe they do now, but when I was in high school, no. So it was a toss up, but I took all the things I learned from him and I plugged it into my everyday. And I think that's that's how I got so far where I am now.
That's awesome.
Grew up in Hamden, Connecticut. It's just between Yale University and Quinnipiac University in Southern Connecticut. Went to college only at 17 in New Hampshire. Got a sports degree there and undergrad there. Met my wife there. Started my career in physician recruiting there. And we had a couple houses that we owned, but everything changed once we had my newborn. We just shifted. We went from being the people that threw the parties all the time. Ugly sweater party, Halloween party. If there was someone just got a brand new car, we had a party, whatever it was. So we were big on hosting and being that house. Something changed when my wife got pregnant. We got pregnant. And we were like, well, you know what? Like, we're tired of hiding our bodies in all of the sweatpants and hoodies. And our kids, it's like, she's a full ride soccer player. I played minor league professional ice hockey. Our kid's going to pop out of her. Like, at the time we were thinking just one. Now we have 3, but they're going to be running out of her. And these kids are going to be very active, and we don't want them to grow up in the atmosphere where the skies are always gray and just want them to be active, which they are really active right now. So we just dropped everything. We convinced our mother-in-law to move down with us. A couple that came down with their kids. They lived across the street. We all built houses right next to each other in the planned community. And we thought that was really the thing. Just go to work, 2 expensive cars. During that process of putting career first over my body and fitness, I lost my image. So the image as the guy that's always in shape, forever lungs, like working my butt off and working hard towards something physical to obtain was out the window. I was more competing into how my yard looked after I edged it. Beer pong or card games with random friends on the weekends that were not really friends, but they were just our neighbors. And so as I was losing that competitive edge where like you said on my podcast, like competitiveness makes us better men. And I just wasn't becoming a better man. Financially, I was getting into a better man. But also I wasn't present as a father should be, which are like key words for your show. But like I wasn't as present for my kids. There's so many times I think of my 3rd child now that we're so darn present in everything she's doing. And you could tell how cohesive she is to me compared to the other ones when they were babies and toddlers and everything. It's just a game changer. So we got tired of the life.
Connection.
Yeah. So like what happened was we were just living that life where we're just like, you're making a lot of money, but you're still kind of like broke at the same time. Like you're spending so much money on trying to keep up with the Joneses in life that you're not really living a quality life. We had the 5-bedroom house, huge mortgage, Big percentage, but we're like, I don't care. This is awesome. This is life.
Mm,
But then something hit us. We had a family member that passed away that lived right next to us. That was a best friend, close and everything, close to our kids, everything. Did so much with us, for us. And it woke us up when we had to donate all that stuff to people. And just when the garage
mm,
is empty, it hit me. I was like, and my wife were like, this is not what life's about. Like, we thought we
yeah.
were doing it right, but we barely see each other. We barely see our kids. We drop the kids off in the dark. We come home in the dark, and pick them up and hope to have time with them. But the the people in daycare were the ones that had fun with them today, and we didn't.
Yeah.
And the commute home. Oh my God, Jacksonville is so bad for commuting, and man, it was tough. Sometimes like an hour commute, 45-minute commute. Um, but that right there, that trauma changed our perspective on life.
Yeah.
That a lot of people wait till they're 65 to retire and enjoy life. But there's a family member that we have that retired literally 6 months later, was gone and passed away. It's like we have to live for now and today, and we're totally different than like all of our friends. They all think we're crazy. It's all good.
Mm,
But unfortunately, when the eagle flies high, other people can't keep up, man. So
yeah.
um, we gotta live our life. It's our circle. This is our wolf pack, and um, to this day, I'm really proud of where we are now. Where basically I took a chance on starting my company, a physician recruiting company, where all I need is internet and a phone and quiet,
Nice.
and I can get it done, and it's flourishing. It was about 2 years of like barely making nothing.
Right.
At one time we had literally $123 left in our account, of everything, like everything, and just eventually we just relinquished the scared side and the fear, and we're like, just screw it, like
Full send.
whatever. Like if anything's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Like if they're gonna like repossession the RV or any other things, it is what it is. And then after that, I put my head down. I got to working early and late, and I just did everything my dad taught me with hard work. Um, and now we are like booking a vacation, like to another place in the islands. So it's like we've allowed ourselves to live um, freely and nomadically, where we get to travel by RV across the country and
That's
back
awesome.
twice to Sedona, Arizona. We lived out there for 3 months. We lived in Waxahachie, Texas.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, 2 times over there. We've lived in Fort Myers. We lived in Jacksonville, south of Jacksonville, St. Augustine. So ever since, we've just been exploring renting homes for a year at a time.
That's super
Um,
cool.
and it's awesome. Our kids like to experience things. They're homeschooled. But now, like we talked about, I gained 40 pounds during that process, uh, before the trauma hit me.
Yeah.
And that was me being comfortable, domestic, comfortable Dan, not
Right.
present for his family, drinking beers and having pizza, playing video games late at night, Call of Duty, playing NHL late night till 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Like, what are you doing?
Mm, yeah.
Um, and just not taking life seriously. Just,
Kind of
you
just
know,
drifting.
exactly. So, like, when you start your own company and you don't have guaranteed income and that guaranteed paycheck, and your kids don't have the groceries, like you have to work as much as you can, like coffee, no sleep, whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's definitely some motivation right there.
Yeah, we went down to two lease cars that were purchased or leased, that were fancy as heck, and we sold, we gave them all back and got like an old school CRV, used, and was totally humbled, like, about life. Like, okay, we have a
Right.
used car right now. We have one car. But I was working so much. I was like, hey, this is what life's all about.
Right.
But anyway, so the podcast was created because I don't want men to be lost like I was lost, where I
Right.
was looking at men's health magazines, men's fitness, ripping out pages, hoping I can find the solution. Um,
Mm,
but I still had a gut. I still couldn't run more than a mile and a half with my knee banged up. Um, and then I just found myself, and that's why I started the podcast because a couple years later after racing, I won a big race, world championship age group, second place for Deca Strong, um, which is great. But then at that moment, it was like I hit that goal, and then I was like, well, what do I do now? And I felt that lostness again. It's not
Yeah.
even a word, lostness, but um, the fact that I felt that way again, it hit a memory of how low I felt, that I didn't
Mm,
enjoy looking at the man in the mirror. I didn't respect the man in the mirror. So that's where the Competitive Edge podcast was created, because
I
I
love that,
want
man.
men to learn from you, from other people, tips and
Right.
hacks, and learn from each other.
Dude, awesome. Man, so much to we're going to revisit a lot from that, but I really
Yeah,
appreciate you walking through so much there. I think a lot of guys can relate to your story too, right? I think and I'd love to get into this in a little bit here. But I think that there's a trap, right? Oh, hey, do all these things, so live this, the American dream, and in reality, you're trading the most precious moments for a few more dollars that you're not going to enjoy for 30 years,
yeah,
And maybe that used to work. Maybe things are different. And I don't want to get into like, economics and everything, but the world's a different place here, very succinctly. I want to go back to a couple different things. First, I'd love to hear more about the role your dad played, because it sounds like, obviously he brought a lot of discipline and toughness from the Marine Corps. But did he raise you well? Did you have a great relationship with him? What did that look like? Because it sounds like he has been a huge figure in your life to help you push through these things.
100%. He's always been my biggest supporter, but also truthful. Um,
Mm,
there's a lot of dads out there who would be like, honey, you played a good game, and then just leave it. Like, or there'll be other dads that are like, you did this and did this and then did this wrong. Like, my dad was just like, we would just drive and be quiet on the way home. And then he's like, how do you think you did? It's like, well, I did all right. And I did this. And it was like, well, you know, do you want to know, what I saw? And then I just listened to him, and
mm,
I'd fix it. Super coachable as a kid, always respecting my dad.
yeah.
Never talked back to my dad. I always saw a lot of overly privileged kids talk back to their parents, and I was like, whoa, like, do you guys know what a spanking is? Because I do. From a Marine,
Yep.
I think I know what a spanking is. And I wasn't a bad kid growing up. I just didn't. I wasn't like interested into learning, and they would
Mm.
be totally surprised I ended up with a graduate degree. I swear. Um, They'd be like, "How'd you get that?" um, but yeah, my dad always taught me the biggest word from him is tenacity. I
Mm.
mean, I have
I
it
love that.
I have it tattooed on my arm. Oh, can't really
Yeah,
see it,
brother. I love that.
but it says, "Stay tenacious, my son." So, and it says Mama and Papa Chew. So that's his nickname, Papa Chew. But like, it's just a reminder to don't be average. Don't settle
Yeah.
with being average. Like, you want to be better than you think you can be, not toward other people. Like, I don't want my
Right.
podcast better than your podcast. I want my
Right.
podcast to be the best it could be for
Yes.
myself.
Exactly.
But you can't compete, and you combine forces like this. Like, we
Right.
collaborate with people, and you befriend them. But tenacity is the biggest thing my dad taught me, and being tough and being strong. I always grew up short. I think you mentioned that on my podcast that you were too. Um,
I was a little kid.
yeah, yeah. I went to school a year early too. So like I
Yeah.
graduated high school at like 12 and a half. So I was super young. Well,
Wow.
not high school, middle school. Sorry. I started
Gotcha.
freshman year, 12 and a half years old. So, I just remember like pushing like a huge tall kid down the hill because he just kept pestering me all the time. So then after that, everyone in school was like, he's short, but he's strong. They were like, leave him alone. I was like, yeah.
That's
So
hilarious.
it just makes, teach your kids like, hey, don't take anything from anybody. And if you show weakness, they're gonna just jump on
Mm.
you like a bunch of seagulls at the beach.
Yeah.
So he just taught me how to be tough, be fearless, leave it all out there, always work hard. It's how I got through grad school. There's no way in heck I would have got through without late night flashcards.
Right.
Um, but yeah, just overall great father. No one's perfect, but I think the hardest thing now is for him is I've just grown into the man he's wanted to me to be. So it's like
Hmm.
I've grown so much that he's like proud of me, but at the same time, if we have discussions or something, kind of like butt heads a little bit as we
Yeah.
grow older. But as a
Right.
kid, man, till I was 17, just absolute hero.
That's super cool, man. It's really awesome to hear that, oftentimes on this show we hear the stories of where it didn't go very good
Yeah.
with that relationship. So it's nice to hear a good one. And I'm very thankful for you and grateful for you that you had that experience, and that's a great model, right? So, dads out there listening in, take note from that. Daniel
Yeah.
still attributes all these years later that his dad was that force in his life. So we all get that opportunity. The next thing I wanted to get into from kind of the overview of your story was um, really where you kind of felt like you lost your edge, right? And you kind of alluded to here earlier where competition is mostly against self, right? There's obviously some outside competition, but
Yeah.
the stuff we're really talking about in terms of pushing ourselves to be better is not to like, push everyone else down and like one up them. That's like what little boys do, right? But
Yeah.
what men do is realize, hey, if I aspire to be more like if I aspire to be more like Daniel, I'm going to be more fit and more present with my kids and all that kind of stuff, right? And we're both going to do our things kind of our own ways, but there's power that comes from kind of pushing each other, learning from each other, interacting. And so, it seems like you kind of bought into this lie, so to speak, that like, oh, well, just do your own thing. Um, follow the plan, do the grind, so to speak, and it'll
Yeah.
just work out in the end. And you didn't really have any like vision or direction. And you were kind of just in a sense living someone else's kind of blueprint for you.
Yeah. It's just
So
that
like,
traditional
how did that
lifestyle.
happen? Because it seemed like you're an athlete, you were really engaged in athletics and
Yeah.
everything, and then kind of just stopped.
It's you lose your image. I mean, you play minor league pro hockey. A lot of people say don't do it. You might get hurt or it's going to hurt your career, but like I still did my graduate degree part-time as I played. So sometimes when we played in Jacksonville, they'd be at the beach and I'd be on Blackboard just like working on the computer
Yeah.
like a nerd. Um but I had that as a backup plan. But to be honest, like it hasn't really helped me. I mean, I, continue learning is great, but to this day, I don't. When I finished playing, I felt like I would have a good job, but literally, I was just a regular guy,
Mm.
just trying to get 30K here and there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think just following into that regular traditional lifestyle, get a job, start a life, get in debt and mortgage, and
Mhm.
buy an expensive ring on financing, and buy an expensive honeymoon, all that stuff. It's I wish I had some advice and taught a little bit more the value of money.
Yeah.
Even when I played minor league, I had like this Walmart card that I rolled up. I had a Visa that was like at the bar. I was like, "Drinks on me."
Mm.
It just was not responsible, and my wife's mother helped us with that and stuff like that, how to get back on
Mm.
straight for that. But there was another traumatic situation where like when you're used to winning, and it's good to get humbled as
Yeah.
F, man. I remember just coming down to Florida, cocky. I billed $5 million a year for my company, the last company I worked for, and I was making good money. And we were doing fine, doing great. We moved down to Florida, all that stuff, and then I got this job downtown. I thought it was awesome. It was not. I was trying to do things with hard work. It just wasn't work out. I realized I lost my passion of helping emergency medicine doctors get jobs that actually help cardiac arrest, stabbing, shootings,
Right.
to helping help desk fix a computer and all this. It just didn't add up for me. It was
Yeah.
just, I didn't feel like I was making a difference in the world. And the people that I worked with were most of them were like unhealthy. Um, and they just loved talking about college football. I'm like, I don't even watch football, man. So it's just there was a lot of brown nosing and trying to go out with the boss to get drinks or barbecue
Mm.
and all
Right.
that stuff. And I just bounced jobs because I couldn't find like what I had in New Hampshire was perfectly fine. I left it, but then you realize you think you can do something in some other places, but you don't have that spot. That's why people get traded in sports and pro
Yeah.
sports, because each team has specific needs for who they need for specific positions. And I just didn't fill those needs. So I
Mm.
got tired of it and ended up just having that job. But then out of nowhere, I decided to, instead of leaving it, I decided to just face it and like, hey, let's just do it. I'm just going to do my best. I'm not going to quit on this job. And at 6 months, this really super, super unhealthy man pulls me in his office, um, and the room smelled, and he's just like in his office. No one else is around. He's like, hey, Dan, you got a second? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, all right, something's not right. Usually I work through lunch, and he's like, hey, it's not working out. We're gonna have to, let you go today. And I'm like, never mind what he said, but for me, I'm like, as a guy who's usually winning stuff, and
Hmm.
I could still be playing like overseas right now. Like, why am I doing this
Right.
job? Um, and then all my stuff's in a box, and out of my little cubicle, everything, all my pictures, my kids, all that stuff into a box, and I felt extremely defeated.
Mm.
Felt like I just lost because I convinced my wife to stay home and watch the kids and have one income, and I just lost it. Um, so I went home, and I didn't go home. I went straight to Starbucks, and I spent 5 hours applying to every single job underneath the sun.
Wow.
And then because I wanted it, I didn't. You can't you can't just roll up to your wife, who's a stay at home
Yeah.
mom with our newborn, and say, "Hey, I just lost my job," and she's like, "All right, well, what do you do now?" I'm like, "I don't know." Then you start arguing, but
Right.
instead, I was like, "Hey, I just applied to
You take
55
action.
jobs. Yep,
Yeah.
55 jobs. Three of them told me that they want to talk to me tomorrow. And then I have another two interviews next week, all in one day." And
Nice.
she's like, all right. So it was just finding a solution with the problem. Obviously, I didn't feel good holding it away from her, but um, it was a moment. I sat outside before I got to the car, and I actually was
Mm.
really upset because I didn't know what the hell just happened to me. But sometimes you got to get punched in the face to realize where
Yeah.
you are in life and what you really want. Because I didn't want that. That was the best thing that's ever happened to me, because I was driven by being better in my life, quality of life, than this guy who's in his office just like
Right.
super unhealthy. And so was the manager and division manager as well. Like, it just, like, that's not life. Tucking your shirt in when you have a beer belly, and just, it's not life for me.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's what woke me up to really start my company for real.
Yeah, man. It's a good, story of kind of have. I agree. I've had moments like that in my life where I got punched in the face.
Yeah. So
uh,
wake up call. You're not as
and
good as you think you are.
like, what are you gonna do with it? Yeah, you gotta swallow your pride. You gotta embrace some humility there, and then I love that you just immediately took action too, right? Because it would have been very easy to just feel sorry for yourself and kind of go and wallow.
Yeah.
And real quick, I'd love to just harp on that point. Like, that's such a great distinction too for men. Like, things are gonna go wrong, right? Stuff is gonna happen. It's our job to lead, right? And that moment right there, that's real leadership, what you described there. Like, everyone thinks leadership is, oh, I'm in charge of this position and I have the title and so I'm a leader.
Yeah.
That's like 1% of it. What you did right there is leadership. So you took immediate action to solve the problem, and then you thought about, like, oh, how am I going to communicate this to my wife in a way that isn't just crushing her? I'm not transferring this burden for her to just carry by herself. I'm actually doing something about it, and then talking to her about it in a way where, hey, honey, this is a thing that's happened.
Yeah.
This is my plan. This is what we're going to do about it. And I know it's probably scary for you, but you kind of led through that situation in your relationship, not just getting the next job. And that's such a great example. For us as husbands specifically, to kind of chew on that and think about, like, in our life, are we just dumping stuff on our wives? Because a lot of the times we unknowingly do it because we're wanting to share, we're wanting to be open, but you need to do it in a way that's not essentially just passing the rock to her.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you handled that very well. So I love that example. The other thing I wanted to hit on real quick too is, like, in my coaching program, I tell guys, be weird, like, especially when it comes to diet or whatever, but be the weird one. And who cares if they think you're weird that you're not going to have beer at the party or you're not going to eat the cake and all that kind of stuff? Like, I'm just talking about diet here, but who cares? And so, like, with your
Yeah.
lifestyle, right, you clearly decided, hey, these things are not what I want. And so, in order to live this different life where you're actually having fulfillment and enrichment with your kids and your family, I'm sure people do think you're weird. Who
Yep.
cares? Because you're living at a higher level, right? And again, it's not like a one up game, but you're objectively getting more out of life,
Yeah.
doing it the quote weird way. And I think there's this, like, sickness with wanting to be normal. And normal today sucks, right?
Yeah.
Like, the average guy is fat. He hates his job. His marriage is probably sexless. Like, let's be honest. Most men, I hear stories of guys going like 6 to 8 months or more, and they haven't been intimate with their wives. I'm like, you're not married then.
Yeah.
You're
That's,
roommates.
yeah.
But average sucks. Like, and people like try and pull you down if you try to just somehow do better. And I love that competitive edge concept there too, because it's not about winning. It's just about rising above the mire, like who wants to stay stuck in that? So,
Yeah.
um, if we can, I'd love to dive in a little bit more too with that, the death of the family member. That was kind of your wake up call moment. So you'd put on weight at this point, right? You weren't really living the healthy life you wanted to be leading. Get through a little bit more of like the psychology, what was going on in your mind, what were the specific actions you started taking? Because we're all going to have a moment of crisis like that at some point, right? And that seemed to be a really pivotal moment for you and for your family, right? You decided you were going to change the direction of your lives entirely. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. Before I dive in that, just going back to what you said, it's just like totally okay to be uncommon. Like what you
Yep.
said, that was the key word for uncommon. Like when I drove across the country to Sedona, Arizona in an RV, everyone's like, you just sold all your stuff and put it in storage and you're going across the country and you might move to Sedona potentially. It was like, yeah. So we actually lost a couple friends because they were like, one of them actually told my wife, like you're doing too much crazy stuff. When you guys get
Hmm.
settled, you can talk to me.
Hmm.
No more,
Yeah.
or there's people with the vaccinations, or there's people with,
Right.
organic eating. For us, like anything that has toxic stuff in it, we're not eating. It's not going in our
Yeah.
body. Um, so anyway, so the trauma side, what was going through my head at that time, man, I never experienced anything like this. This is only something you may see in movies.
Mm.
It was just like kind of like, is this real? And it, I had to be, I had to hide my real feelings to keep my wife sane.
Mm.
Um, because there was a lot of grief,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of fighting on her side of the family, and blaming and pointing
Mm.
fingers, and people fighting over money which we didn't even know they had. Um, and it was crazy.
Yeah.
But to be honest, we had a lot of problems with that. But as a husband, I had to cover for her for
Mm-hmm.
maybe a few months. Like my parents had to kind of help and come over and help me out sometimes, because like I had to do everything on my own and work. I was working two jobs. I was working a virtual sales job in the garage, but while I was starting my company, Med Atlantic,
Yeah.
at the time. Um, so I was bootstrapping. Not only was I doing that, but like taking care of the kids and homeschooling and cooking or dishes.
Yeah.
So I had to be strong for her, because she was not level. She was not even in her body. Um, so I had to be strong for her. And I kind of held on to those emotions that later on came out. There's some deep healing and meditation sessions that we did. Um, so it's good to feel it. You got to feel it to heal it. So it wasn't, I don't
Yeah.
recommend you holding on to it, but if I was a mess, who knows what my wife would be. I had to
Mm.
keep her contained.
Yeah.
Um, and I think what we did is we went on a sabbatical. We moved to St. Thomas, Virgin
Okay.
Islands. We stayed out there for just about 2 months. Um, and we lived just on a mountain. Um, and it was awesome. We, we lived life almost like a local. People thought we lived there forever. Um, and we just kind of found our meaning for life, and I started taking more focus on just my company and not working for anybody else.
Mm.
That's when we kind of started taking that chance.
Yeah.
um, and then we went on a cruise too. So travel is our way of actually really honing into
Okay.
thinking. We get away from everything, all the noise,
Yeah. You
you
kind
know
of disrupt the pattern, right?
exactly, and we figure out exactly what we want, because like there was probably like a year before that, we went to a speaker event in Miami, and we drove all the way from Jacksonville to Miami. And during that entire drive, no kids in the car interrupting us at all, we started thinking, what do we want in life? So it
Mm.
gave us that time alone with no distraction to really realize what we wanted. And that's kind of the entrepreneur stuff kind of started thinking in our heads.
Yeah.
Maybe I was distracted at work. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I knew it was meant for something better. Um, but yeah, just handling that trauma, I think, is just as a man, as a husband, we have to, like you said, put the wife first, put your wife
Mm-hmm.
first. And that she needed me to be strong. and support her. That's
Yeah,
kind of what
man.
she needed.
It's a great example, man. Yeah, there's times in life where you're gonna have to carry a lot, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we do. That's what we should do, right? And there's times in my life where I didn't follow your example. I did a bad job, and looking back, it's very shameful. I hate that I have to admit that, right? But I realized how truly selfish I was, right? Because I was, it's like, oh, she's doing this to me. She's unable to be healthy, and so now it's like she's putting it on. Like how selfish, right?
Yeah.
And so in your example, you didn't fall to that temptation to kind of like point blame and like get bitter about it and things like that. And that's what a real marriage is, right? That's real masculine leadership in
Yeah.
marriage, right? There's times, yeah, it's not going to feel fair. It's not going to be, you know, all dandy, but we said for better for worse, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm proud of you to
Yeah.
hear that. Did you have anyone like a circle? Did you have a brotherhood that you were relying on in that time to kind of process what you were going through to help you with all that?
Just my best man, my best friend
Okay.
from high school, since sixth grade. But then we were supposed to be college roommates in college for freshman year, but I decided to go to New Hampshire last minute. But we were inseparable up until that moment.
Okay.
Um,
But
but
so
then
he was
just
there for you through it, and
yeah, so
you
like
talked a lot.
we don't talk or see much of each other now, but when we talk to each other, literally he called today actually,
Mm,
and I haven't talked to him in a couple months. But it's like almost as if like we don't miss a beat.
yeah.
It's like we know each other inside and out, and just a 30-minute phone call is all we need every couple months. But
Yeah.
anytime anything good, like really good happens or bad happens, he's the guy that I reach out to.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And so do you think you would have been able to lead in the way you did for your family if you didn't have that close friendship?
No, absolutely not. Because as men, we can't pour like a waterfall of emotions on our wife. Like
Hmm.
we can't do that. Like I can't have a bad day for my company and just like literally all over her. Like it has to be a good way to reach out to a friend or a brother and
Yeah.
get it all out so that when you express it to your wife, you are a man. You're saying it in a leadership way, in a man way to your best friend. Don't hide anything from them, but
Yeah.
you you don't you don't want to show kind of like the bully in when I was a kid that I threw down the hill that was taller than me. You know what I mean? Like I can't show weakness. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's okay to show emotion, but we are the protectors. So like if they need to know that they're protected and have that
Yeah.
security. So if
Yeah.
someone ran through that door, they know they're protected. And
Right.
but still gotta feel it to heal it at the same time.
Yeah. And I think what you did, right, is when you talk to a close guy friend, right, who knows you very well, and it's a deep level of respect and brotherhood there, you're able to process the painful elements of the emotions with him
Yeah.
so that when you're communicating it with your wife, there's a little bit of a detachment from it then, right? You've kind of felt it and dealt with it a little bit. And so now you're more communicating the information and your plan to change the situation, right?
Yeah.
And like I know a lot of people are going to try and nitpick this and think, oh, well, you should just be 100% transparent with your wife. And it's like, we're not talking about lying here. That you're
Yeah.
still
We're
being
still
entirely
transparent.
transparent, but in the way you communicate,
Yeah.
to your point, right? Our goal as husbands should be, and as dads, is to create this presence of safety, right? Security.
Yeah.
And it's not just from physical danger, it's from all types of danger, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever, right? And if you're like this panicked presence full of pressure and tension everywhere you go, they sense it.
Yeah.
And so if you're communicating like, well, I just don't know what we're going to do about all this, like, well, then in their heads, they're like, well, holy cow, we should be freaking out too, And so it's like, you
Yeah.
set the tone. I got to quote Travis Ritchie on this one. He says, when dad gets home, he sets the tone.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And this is what we're talking. This is what he means by that is how you communicate the hard things, how you communicate these difficult conversations, not just to your wife, but to your kids as well. There needs to be a presence of, I've got you. It's going to be painful, but we're going to get through this together. That's
Yeah.
very different than like, I don't know what we're going to do. Like
Yeah.
which one do you want to leave your wife with? Right. So what a
Yeah.
great example, man.
And we're never gonna know what to do Everything is usually off the hip. But if you,
Yeah.
like I think did I mention it with you? My buddy from a retreat told me, he said, if you think with your heart, you're smart. If you think with your head, you're dead.
Mm,
So just follow your heart. And if you make a mistake, you fail forward. That's it.
gotcha. I have not heard that one before.
Yeah.
Um, I actually kind of want to push back on that a little bit. I think lead your heart.
Lead your heart. Lead with
Because
your heart.
I think our emotions can be deceiving. Uh,
Yeah.
More often than not, actually. And I think that's where the processing with brotherhood is so important for us, because we'll feel a thing, and I think we add layers to it because we have our own insecurities or our own traumas, and so then this thing that quote triggered you or whatever, the thing that happened becomes bigger than it really is. And so when you process it with a buddy,
Yeah.
he'll be like, nah, man, you're adding stuff to this right now, like it's really not that big, and it's this and this. And um so I see where
No,
the
I
sentiment with
guess
that, like,
I
you
maybe.
can't just be logical. You
Yeah.
have to be in tune to the fact that you're human. You're going to feel these emotions. Like, you can't just
Yeah.
stuff them down. But I also think there needs to be, like, we need to chew on those emotions, identify like what's really going on from an emotional intelligence point of view, and then kind of lead our heart in the right direction, because
Yeah.
it's still going to be
Just
scary,
having
right? Or
that
it's still going to
balance
be,
based on the
yeah, yeah.
situation.
Don't be a
Like,
robot, but don't be
yeah.
a weepy sack of, jelly either. So,
Yeah. Like, for example, like your clients, right? Like, or maybe not your clients, but like, say if I wanted to start like a fitness virtual
sure.
coaching thing. Um, you start something like that, you have to think with your heart, because you have to put your clients first and everything dominoes
Okay.
later,
I see what you're
instead
saying.
of like thinking, hey, I gotta charge this much because I need to pay this much for my car bill. But like, no, like you have to, you build up a walking billboard, someone for free, and then
Mm,
let them tell the truth to the world and let that expand, and then you can start asking people,
yeah.
what would you pay for this? But that's a, I don't know.
I see
But
what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah.
your passion has to be in it, and
Yeah.
you've gotta commit, right, at the
I
heart
like I
level.
like what you said though on that subject for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not trying to, like, pick you apart or whatever. I
No,
never
no,
heard the
no.
phrase, but I see the intent behind the phrase now, and I do agree with you. Like, you talked about it with your work history, right? So you're doing all these jobs, things you really didn't have any passion for. You didn't really feel like there was purpose behind it. It wasn't the direction you wanted to be leading your life in. And so you made a change, right? And now
Yeah.
your heart is in the things you're doing. And, I'm sure there was some turmoil and stress and sleepless nights over all that.
A
But in the
lot.
end, right, you never felt like you were betraying who you needed to become. Right.
Yes.
And I think that's where
Yeah.
most men are stuck today. And to the point of losing their competitive edge, is they traded their passions, their dreams, their purpose for some security.
Yeah.
But that security is really a trap, right? You're stepping in the bear trap, and
Yes.
now you're stuck,
Yeah.
and it seemed safe initially, right? Because it's got these big, you stepped into a prison,
Yeah,
really, right?
you're asking permission from your boss, like, can I
Right,
have my day off for my wife's birthday today?
right.
Like, no, man, it's your wife's birthday. Like, that she needs that time today. And when you have a vacation, or for example, as a parent, like if your kids are puking and they're sick, which they get sick a lot,
Yep.
you're using your vacation time
Right.
for that. And then when it's time to you to go on vacation, you can't even go. You
Mm,
can't even recharge. So that's why I think taking life in your own hands and doing something that you love is
yeah.
important. But I think everyone in the world has a carrot, right? Like, there's a reason why we're running a podcast. There's a reason why I wake up early in the dark and just train by
Hmm.
myself. Like, there's a reason for everything. But if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, you're not going to want to do it, nor are you going to
Yeah.
do it at your highest level of capability. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the things that you had maybe in your character traits, or, skills that had been developed when you decided to make this leap, right? And go all in on your business. And, I'm sure there's a lot of fear and uncertainty with that.
Yeah.
And I asked this question in the sense of, like, what can men take from your experience, right? What are some of the lessons you learned where guys need to own some of these things a little bit harder so that they can start. Maybe it's not starting a company, right? But to take some more ownership in their life of if they're dissatisfied with it, what are the things Daniel did to change it? What are the things that you learned that they can extract from your experience and start applying in their life, whatever their situation is, to start owning the outcomes and change the trajectory of their life?
Yeah, I mean, not settling for the status quo, um, not always listening to the people that you think would have the best
Mm,
reasoning for you, because family doesn't want you to fail. They want you to have a great life. So if they fear something that they can't do, they're
yeah.
going to create speed bumps in front of you, or create the fear.
Yeah.
I mean, as we said, hey, we're going to go on a sabbatical in St. Thomas right away. One of my family members like, do you know there's like kidnapping there, and do you know that it's really dangerous and there's so much crime and this and that? I'm like, you got to be careful for your family. It's like, okay, well, we're going to do our best. You taught me to protect my family from me
Yeah.
watching you. Um, I think also don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fall on
Hmm.
your face, because everyone just wants to keep their sneakers nice and clean all the time. Like,
Yeah.
like go get dirty, like go mess up.
You
Um,
learn.
exactly. Like starting my company, did I know how to create a website? No, I made it into like a PowerPoint. Like it was awful, but the doctors needed to know I'm not in India. They need to know that I'm not a fake machine or robot.
Right.
And then eventually I partnered with my buddy whose brother-in-law created a website. Now it's like beautiful.
There you go.
It just happens on its own. Um, it if is it like if you I guess if you have consistency and you always work hard on what your goal is and make a vision board, that's what helped me. I knew I
Hmm.
wanted a Jeep, I knew I wanted a house by the beach, I knew I wanted this and this, or RVing across the country. I want to create a life on our own terms to travel now instead of
Yeah.
in the future. And that vision kept me alive to keep pushing and to be different too. Don't just because you leave a company and you're doing something similar, you don't have to do it exactly the same. Like
Hmm.
I came from a recruiting company where they were very cutthroat. They were heavy in the cold calling people. Like you got good at calling emergency medicine doctors at the hospital. And I was
Wow.
good at that. But I did it different to the point, oh, my only phone calls are schedule calls. So I text, I email, but I build a relationship and ask for
Yeah.
referrals versus like, hey, I don't really know you, but you really want a job in St. Augustine tomorrow? Like
Mm.
it's a it's a longer term game. Um,
Yeah.
and that took me a while, but it's worth it. So it's worth it at the end of the day. Um, I know you mentioned talking about like uh, big dad moments. Taking my daughter to dance class at
Mm.
10:15 a.m. I didn't get like teary eyed, but it was emotional. And
Yeah.
knowing like 10:15, like this is the time I would be like grinding back in the day when I
Right.
started my company, and I'm over here with her with no stress on my mind of lack of money mindset, nothing.
Hmm.
Um, and I just loved it the way she was dancing, and I was like, this is great. It's just like not like I made
Yeah.
it, but like we created this life,
Right.
So a couple things that I think people need to know is to live for today, take massive action, pick up your kids every day when they wake up,
Mm.
put your wife first,
Right.
like you said. Ever since you told me that, I love it. I'm so heavy on that every day. I was like, okay, put my wife first. Or like that one moment, my wife's like, hey, like, can you come over here? And I'm like, oh, hold on a second. No, I'm like, all right, stop. Wife first.
Yeah.
Um, I think also the most important thing that's made a difference in my life is just wake up earlier before your kids. Wake up before the tasks. Wake up
Yep.
before you got to put the dishes away. Wake up before you got to take the dog out. Take just having your time and do something so hard that it scares the living daylights out of you. And then the rest of the day, you're ready to hold doors for old ladies. You're
Yep.
willing to say, have a good day. You're willing to put the carriage back where it's supposed to go instead of just right there in front of your car. Like it's just you're willing to give more when you give to yourself first.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. You're pouring from a filled cup at that point.
Yeah, 100%.
Man, those are some really great points. Love it. Um, Real quickly, I'd love to hear about just kind of the intensity of your training, right? Because obviously,
Yeah.
you turn things around, you worked very hard, you've competed at a very high level,
Not done.
since that.
Not
You're
done
not
yet.
done. Yeah, you're still always grinding. But, I'd love to just hear a little bit about, what you do, because I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of people, they see you on Instagram like, man, he's jacked and all that kind of stuff. But like, what's the secret behind the results,
But hey, I mean, going back to what you just said, the jacked, like, that's a byproduct. When you train
Right.
hybrid, we're not doing this. We're not
Hmm.
doing this. It's not like it's a sport where you have to be able to run and then do some kind of crazy workout like burpee broad jumps,
Right.
unbroken potentially, or wall balls, but then run right after. So you have to have your heart trained enough to handle that without being like taken over.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, I first started with OCR. I saw a video like 3 a.m. in the morning when I was starting to kind of get my life back in order, and I was going for running all the time, and followed David Goggins, and I was like, who's gonna carry the
Okay.
boats? And then I was like, and I'm out here because you're not. Like I remember like a lady one time, I had no shirt on and I was running, and it was like 40 degrees in St. Augustine, and she rolled down her window and she's like, do you know it's like 40 degrees out? I was like, yes, that's why I'm out here. And I was like, did I
Which for
just say that?
Floridians,
My
right?
David Goggins for a second. Did I
Yeah,
just do it at Goggins?
was that down in Florida? Is that what you
Yeah, yeah,
said?
down
Or
in Florida, but it was
yeah, so
cold. Like,
40 degrees in Florida is
yeah,
like,
it
the
must have been
apocalypse
like
has come to
it was
Florida at
just
that point,
cold. Like
right?
it was
Yeah,
early morning and there was like frost on like the trees and stuff, but like
right.
that's cold. Lady's like, "What are you doing?" But like David Goggins kind of took me over to realize, all right, well, don't settle for life. Just
Mm,
grind. And I didn't know how to run. I just kept running the same loop that was like 2.5 miles every day, or run as far. I didn't know how far I was gonna run. I didn't have a plan, but I kept doing it. And then I just ran fast because I'm a hockey player. So like I
okay.
never like there's no pacing, there's no zone 2
You
aerobic
were just
building,
Yeah, you were just
nothing.
going.
Just going heel striking too, like bad form. Um Man, and I didn't fuel, I didn't have any water, I didn't have any gels, I didn't have nothing. I was just silly, stupid, but I would grind. And then so then out of nowhere I started seeing this Spartan race thing on YouTube, and then I just kept
Okay.
watching it till 3:30 in the morning, and I kept like I saw this Italian race and I'm like, oh my God, like this is hard. And this was attracting me because I lost my image with the
Mm,
pro hockey thing. And I was like,
yeah.
I'm really like seeking something like, okay, homeschooling with the kids in the morning and then working in the in-law for my company. That's not enough. Like, that's not enough. I need
Mm,
to live more. I got like 3 little cute girls. This is great, but I need to be pushed more. And it really
mm.
helped me with my business. It gave me a sense of like masculinity, having 3 daughters of pink and purple. It gave me a sense of
Yeah.
just waking up that inner beast inside of you, that little lion that's just been hiding in a cage, and it just like comes out. I love the tenacious side of the racing. And just doing something you think you can't do. Like today, like I thought
Mm.
it was 10 sets that I had to do on the treadmill, but there was really 12. And I
Oh,
was like, all right, got to push. Cuz I planned
yeah.
the speed, so I got to redo the fastest speed 2 times
Mm,
to catch up. But
brutal.
but then when I finished, I was like, yeah, did that.
That's right.
Like, so it's always good to do something that scares the living daylights out of you.
Yep.
And the byproduct is a healthier life, being able to pick up your kids, go to Disney and carry your child around as
Yep.
long as you need to at the zoo. Um, it's worth it. Not everyone has to race. You're not, you're racing against
You're
yourself.
definitely not going to get me running
Yeah.
that long.
Well, there there
I
there
hate it.
is races with no running. So you could do like a Deca Strong where there's 10 stations, and
Okay.
yeah, there's no running there.
Probably more my speed.
Yeah, but I mean, I was never a runner, and
Yeah.
I want to say it was my psychiatric care when
Mm.
my best friend
Yeah.
dog.
I mean, one of the guys on our
Yeah,
podcast, Justin, that's his outlet as he runs. That's how he gets his
yeah,
mind
man,
right. I
that
think he's nuts. I have I have a very negative association when it comes to running, specifically thanks to the army. I've had to do it against my will so many
yeah,
times. I have zero desire to do it now. in my free will, so I'd rather just get strong.
Yeah. Well,
So,
once you get good at it, it gets like addicting. But at the same time,
yeah.
like my dog passed away, and I was allowed to really feel
Mm,
those emotions out there running. Like I remember
mm,
exactly where I was when I broke down twice.
mm.
There was a day that I just ran, and I ran through 4 towns and back.
Wow.
Like my nail fell off after that, um, but it was worth it. It helped me really fight through that and really
Yeah.
figure out my life with no music, just running and allow yourself, because there's so much noise, so much
Mm,
distractions in this world. But yeah, I mean, running has been huge. You don't have to be a runner, but if you can go walking, you go rucking, um, get a go ruck on and just
yep.
hike, it's equivalent to, the same thing as
Yeah.
running. So
Yep.
yeah.
That's great, man. I love how you were just, zero plan, just started doing it. It's kind
Yeah,
of funny.
just
And
just go out
to
there and run.
the guys out there who are, maybe you're feeling like, oh, I need to get more fit now.
Yeah.
I, what I see a lot of people get stuck in is like they overanalyze and try to over engineer all of this. Like
Yeah.
just start with something simple and just do it repeatedly.
Yes.
Like basic is king, and get in a rhythm, build the habit. And then and that's what I tell guys even in my program. Like when you get to the point where you're like looking the way you want to look and you feel the way you want to feel, and then you're like, okay, I need to take it to the next level. Okay, then go like nerd out on all the different sets you need to do and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff and pay a coach and everything. But like before that, if you're just trying to like lose some weight, you just need to do. You don't really need like the world's perfect program, So
Yep.
you're living proof.
Yes. So like I didn't go to a gym because we were low on income with my company starting. So I just used these.
Yep.
I had some parallel bars that I got for like $65 on Amazon that were steel, and I just started doing L sits. I went for
Mm,
runs. I had a mobile pull up bar that I'd
okay.
use, and then we had a Bowflex dumbbells from way back in the day that I barely used at
Nice.
that time. So with those three things, I basically just did calisthenics workouts, handstands, like
Yeah.
anything that was simple. And I started small. So anyone that is listening, start off small. So if you haven't lifted weights in a while, don't overdo it. I had
Right.
a notebook. I had one day that was biceps, one day that was shoulders. It's a traditional thing, right? And then you focus on that. In between each workout, I would do 15 to 25 jumping jacks immediately.
Okay.
So basically, no rest. Um,
Gotcha.
and then basically do 3 sets of uh, 15 sets. Sorry, 3 sets of 15 reps. And basically write that in my notebook. And then literally start at 5 pounds. Like it sounds stupid. You're going to feel like you're jazzercising or something,
Mm-hmm.
but do it because it really helps your mind. So basically,
Yeah.
if you get 3 sets of 15, you write a check mark on your notebook right next to that. You completed that. So that next week you go up 5 pounds. If you didn't, you put an X. So you're going to start off where you left off
Mm,
from next week, but you're still going to get those gains from still trying.
right.
So then you're going to go the next week on your shoulder press, and you're gonna just kill it. You know what I
I
mean?
love that.
So just start small.
Slow and steady. That's right. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
True.
Even
Yeah.
if you're weight training, you're doing it for the long
Yeah.
term, not
Well,
rapid.
one more thing. A lot of guys. I used to work at GNC in college, and
Okay.
as soon as someone's like, "I'm going to get in shape," what do? They go straight to GNC and they drop all this money on vitamins and protein and all stuff. That stuff is toxic. Like I don't take anything. The only thing I have is a vitamin. Like I don't
Yeah.
even take protein powder. I don't. It's most of it is toxic. It's full of metals. It's a lot of bad things in it. So definitely read up on the product,
Mm,
because if you're reading something, you're working out to get healthy, but you're taking a protein powder or nitric oxide or something that is toxic, you're
yeah.
hurting yourself in the inside to get better looking aesthetically, and
Right.
that's not the way you want to do things. And a lot of other guys will try to do too much at one time,
Yeah.
and then you burn out and you quit and you
Yeah.
go back.
You can't boil the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's some amazing fitness advice. Let's shift to kind of the rapid fire here, fatherhood questions we
Yeah.
typically ask everyone. I'd love to hear what legacy means to you, and then a little bit beyond that, just kind of like what is the legacy you are trying to build?
My legacy is in action. anybody I touch, any kids that I help, that I coach in hockey, or my kids, and pass the torch of whatever I know to them,
Mm,
is leaving a legacy. So if I leave this earth tomorrow, anything that they learn is living through them.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's simple, and that is true, right?
Yeah.
That's I
That's
talk
what,
about that. That's one of the pillars of manhood, right? Is the mentor pillar. So I
yeah.
love that, man.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Um,
I've always had that thing where if I'm on a hospital bed and I'm like
right.
199 pounds, 99 pounds, 99 years old, and I think to myself before I'm gonna go, like, am I proud of myself?
Mm,
And
yeah.
that to me is also my personal legacy, just for myself to know that, okay,
Right.
I did the damn thing.
Yeah. It's kind of the standard you set for yourself.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. All right. What is a piece of fatherhood advice you wish you would have received sooner? Or maybe you never got it and you've kind of realized it now as a dad, but you wish, when you first started out, this was the piece of advice that would have been there from the get go.
You're you're always going to make mistakes and you're always going to be learning, but you have to be willing to want to learn more in
Mm.
order to be the best father for your kids. And also call yourself out when you do something wrong and say sorry to your kids for making that mistake, or to your wife, and seek out people like George that can help you. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Oh, that's a great piece of advice, and I couldn't agree more. We're not perfect. Leadership isn't being perfect and acting like you're perfect. It's owning your mistakes too and being honest about those and leading by example. I love that, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's end on the happiest of all of them. It's kind of your favorite core memory, kind of just on your journey so far as a dad. What's one of those memories that, just really pops out to you, some family vacation or something like that?
Um, I think it's the sports, kids sports, just seeing my girls beating several boys in the sports
Yeah.
that they do. That is the best thing, because when you're in the toy aisle and someone comes up to you like, "Oh, three girls and they're gorgeous, you're in trouble. You better get a shotgun or something." And I'm like, in my mind, when they just stick handle around a boy or stop a boy in soccer or anything like that, man, it's phenomenal. It's just
The
a
boys
great
better
feel.
watch out.
Yeah, it's just a great feeling to know that they have the confidence to be great, and they have the genes to do it as well. So all they got
Yeah,
to do is work hard, and I think they can have what they want. So
that's awesome.
it's cool.
I love that. Daniel, where is the best place to find you, to
Yeah,
support you, to follow along with your journey?
yeah. On Instagram, Daniel Jason Hickman. It's pretty simple. It's my full name. And then the Competitive Edge podcast. There's a couple like underscores there, but it's all good. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I'd like you to answer one more question. How do you define the competitive edge for men and for fathers?
Competitive edge is something that's within all of us. Um, we all have it inside of us. It's that fire. It's that lion. It's that monster inside of your body that we tend to keep on a leash.
Mm,
And when you reconnect it, it's almost like you're letting that lion off the leash. And that feeling of tenacity and hunger for more is a competitive edge to me. Um, and being able to feel that rush, um,
yeah,
to just be better than yesterday.
that's great. And when we embrace that, we reject, right, being average. We
Yeah,
we embrace striving for a little bit more, and
makes
it
us
kind of just
better.
becomes a habit, right?
Yeah,
So,
love it, man.
dude, I love it. This has been a lot of fun for me. Great to hear your story, man. Such amazing examples of where you've really, kept your tenacity. You
Yeah,
refer to
man.
that a lot. I love that.
Yeah,
Um, that's definitely something that men need to have is tenacity, and coupled with humility and brotherhood, and just great examples all throughout. So, man, so thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been an honor. And with that, dads, let's get climbing that mountain of fatherhood. We will see you in the next episode.
awesome. Thanks, man.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.